Greetings, this is ggn3, and I'm here to present my anime highlights of 2009. Where I offer my thoughts of every title that I had the time to watch this year, both those I dropped and what I've completed or still watching. Let me warn folks, as usual, not to mindlessly flame me for criticizing a title they liked or not watching a title that aired this year. I don't mind taking responses to my thoughts or taking suggestions for 2009 titles you think I'd have interest in seeing, but flaming in comments where you're acting like an idiot will be wiped out. First, I'll delve into my pile of titles I couldn't survive watching for one reason or another, as it was either too flawed where I couldn't stand it anymore, or just didn't grab my interest enough. Let's begin with a couple Yuri titles. In particular, I'm referring to Arihana and Sasameki Koto. If done right, Yuri anime does make for some decent character explorations, the thoughts concerning female characters, and some interesting developments with said characters. In particular, the Maria Samagami Teru anime franchise and Blue Drop have done quite well with a great focus on characters and drama. Such isn't the case with Sasameki Koto and Arihana. In the case of Arihana, the characters of Fubi and Akira felt like cardboard cutouts, having some sort of character archetype that was tacked onto them, even with its slice-of-life dramatic feel. It didn't help that the show's opening sequence was a bit suggestive of the relationship. I had dropped Arihana after 2 episodes. I held up with Sasameki Koto for an episode longer since it had a key difference that set it apart from other Yuri titles. It was at a public school for both genders, and there was discussion on hooking up cute gore Yuri lover Ushio with guys. Plus, characters were better fleshed out in those few episodes that I watched, an improvement over Arihana. But the increased focus on comedy and the always happy-go-lucky personality of Ushio grated me enough where I ditched it after 3 weeks. But I've had worse experiences this year, in particular 2 anime titles from this season that I couldn't survive for more than 1 episode that are in completely different genres. Welcome Bantora being an action title and Kimi ni Totoke a romantic comedy. Bantora lacked enough substances beyond hinting at development with one of the human shells. The show seemed more focused on showing off the attitude and sex appeal of the Bantora members. Kimi no Todoke's main heroine felt no different from past anime I've seen, featuring a weak, timid girl needing a confidence boost from the potential love interest. Case in points: Nagisa towards Tomiya, Hinata towards Naruto, Chihiro towards Renji, Shinobu towards Keitaro. You get my point. Not too fresh, nor original. I might press some people's buttons with these next 2 titles that got enough top lists for this year. One of them I just got goaded into watching. The other I expected more from, yet it greatly disappointed me. I'm talking about K-On! And Tokyo Magnitude 8.0. Where do I even begin with K-On! Without trying to be insulting? For me, it just seemed like another run-of-the-mill Moi title with a band club plot device as an excuse to show off the cute quirks and antics of the 4 gores. I still don't get what makes so many anime fans go for pure Moi titles, and K-On!'s this year's big title that got Moi fans giddy, but I couldn't survive more than 4 episodes of it. Tokyo Magnitude 8.0 was one of the disappointments for me this year, as I really wanted to love it. I heard it would focus on the realistic problems faced by the Japanese in the event of an 8.0 scaled earthquake, and that was being animated by Bones. For this decade, Bones impressed me with their work on the first Fullmetal Alchemist series, Ra Safan, and Oran Host Club. Alongside Spice and Wolf 2, I greatly anticipated this title in summer '09. And boy was I disappointed. The opening and closing sequences looked and sounded rather plain, not getting me in the mood for Tokyo Magnitude. The character designs were also on the plain side, and for a title being a realistic simulation, the Japanese in the series looked rather disconnected from the tremors and earthquakes that occurred. No one seemed to show any feelings of fear and shock towards the predicaments that took place. Plus, the never-ending optimism of Mari did well enough to grate on my nerves, as I couldn't believe she could always retain a positive outlook in the present predicament that took place. 4 episodes later, I dropped Tokyo Magnitude as a disappointed fellow. This batch of 3 titles I was able to handle for a bit for 10 plus episodes, until the cliched elements eventually tired my interest in them. I'm talking about Hajime no Ippo New Challengers, Shangri-La, and Phantom Requiem for the Phantom. Let's first chat about Hajime no Ippo, the long-awaited 2nd season of the hit boxing series that first came out in 2000. The first series helped my interest due to the humorous character personalities, depth in characters, and the believable focus on the rigorous training and injuries sustained in the sport. I was forgiving of the reused animation frames for that series thanks to its 70-plus episode length, but not for Season 2. I heard it was only 26 episodes and assumed it would be improved in fluidity like the movie and OAVs that came out after the TV show's completion. But even with more polished artwork and character designs, the animation for New Challenger was the same as Season 1's. As with the other aspects of this series, New Challenger does retain its focus on the rigorous aspects of boxing training and matches, but character depth appears to have been flung out the window, as the top new boxers introduced in the first 10 episodes lacked depth, except for the fact they're world-class boxing champs. Add to this a couple of developments notable returning characters that left a sour taste in my mouth, and I chose to abandon Hajime no Ippo New Challengers. Shangri-La and Phantom were two 26-episode titles that I was able to endure for the entirety of the first halves before I dropped them. Both titles caught my interest in their premises and different moods conveyed. Shangri-La's mix of comedy and adventure caught my interest, giving me a light-hearted future version of Last Exile, while Phantom's focus on the loss of Zwei and Ein's humanity as they're made into Sight Master's pawns got my attention. There was one glaring thing, though, that both these titles lacked a great amount of: depth. In the case of Phantom, only Zwei got a great amount of focus, as other major players and the Inferno Crime Syndicate lacked plenty of depth in the 13 episodes I've seen of the show. Shangri-La didn't bother to provide additional bits of background to what led to the current situation of the environment on Earth, and the overtaking from corporate influence, as well as depth into the past and motivations of the major characters. Without any of these details, I could only care about Shangri-La for so long. Once I heard the summer 2009 titles were coming out, I ditched Phantom and Shangri-La after their first halves were complete. Honorable mentions for droppings go to Toradora SOS and Higurashi no Nakukora ni Rei, two releases found on video. I only seen one of the Toradora SOS shorts, which, considering my thoughts of the series that I'll elaborate on later in this video, didn't have me carried for the other shorts, so the Spaghetti short was all I seen. As for Higurashi Rei, I just couldn't accept it as a pure comedy considering the nice mix of Mori, horror, mystery, and drama the first two seasons provided. Without the three former, Higurashi Rei is no different from other Mori titles I've seen. The poor episodes all I've seen, and I'm not going to bother with anything else.